I want to welcome everyone to the St. Charles County Council meeting. We will begin our meeting with the invocation given by Pastor Steve Parks of Bible Baptist Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Mike Ehlmann. Please rise.
Let us bow in prayer. Father, we come before you. We acknowledge your sovereign rule in our life. We thank you for the grace and the day that you've given to us. We thank you for these who serve our community, and we pray, Father, tonight for your wisdom and your discernment, that they would weigh the issues before them, and Father, that we might have lives that will be peaceful and honorable in your sight. We thank you for our community. May we be your servants, we pray in your name and for your sake. Amen.
Amen. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Joe Cronin.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Brazel.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Terry Hollander.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Ehlmann.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Klinghammer.
Here.
Councilmember John White.
Here.
Okay. First on the agenda tonight is a public hearing regarding traffic regulations. So we want to open that public hearing. Is there anyone here to comment on the traffic regulations? Right there, sir. Yeah.
My name is Don Marison. I live right at the corner of West Sunnyside and South Diane. We're proposing a stop sign to make it a four-way stop instead of just a two-way. Just looking at the board, other than possibly Mike or Joe over here, you all look like you're possibly grandfathers. I've got 8 grandkids that at any one time can be on my driveway. This is going to affect me more than anybody in that subdivision, because when I back out, I pull past my driveway and I will have to stop. In the evening when I come home, I creep through that intersection at 4:30 because of the sun coming out of the west. We'd like to just get it slowed down at that intersection. I don't want to lose a grandkid. I've lost one, but not to that.
Is there any other public comments on the traffic regulations? Yes, sir.
Mine has something to do with that, but it has more to do with that.
More to do with what, sir?
Well, I have a piece here, and I think it's probably one of the most dangerous intersections in St. Charles County, and I can't get anybody to address it. It happens to be Hoff Road.
I'm sorry, sir. It has to be on the list of traffic regulations that we're dealing with right now.
Oh, I thought it was public comment. I'm sorry.
You're fine. If you want to bring that up during public comments, you're certainly welcome to do that.
I'll give it that.
Okay. Before we move on, Craig, could you come up and just explain? I know we've done this before numerous times, but to explain how the process works here on these traffic regulations.
The list that you have in front of you and the basis of these public hearings are traffic regulations that have been requested by citizens of the county. They submit a petition requesting the actions that you see listed. Following tonight, we'll go out and review each location, make a determination on what we believe to be the proper course of action, and following that, we'll come back to you with a proposal, and you will consider that in the form of an ordinance regarding those that you wish to adopt.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Betty Ruhlman, and I live on Pine Bluff Drive, and I'm not sure that that is what you're talking about, but we're looking for no parking from here to corner signs, and it is a safety issue. The street itself is only about 20 feet wide. If cars are parked on either side, there's barely room for 2 cars then to pass that are driving. And the way you have to turn in, it's almost a blind corner. You cannot see traffic on it if there are cars parked there.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else to speak on any of the traffic regulations that have been proposed? Okay. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing on traffic regulations and open a second public hearing on capital improvement program for 2014 to 2018. Is there anyone to speak on that? Yes, Mr. Dienoff.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the County Council. A.C. Dienoff, County resident. The public hearing that came up at the last meeting that we had about public notices in the newspapers, and Wayne Anthony testified that we're trying to get away from spending a lot of money in newspapers that people don't read in legal journals and legal publications. And for some reason, I looked on the county's website. I looked on the Department of Finance, called the finance director, was looking for the public capital improvement projects through 18, and I couldn't find of anything in electronic format. I made a request to the county council office, and I was provided it late this afternoon. But I think it's very important that we interject and that we get people that are using these services and demand improvements throughout the county, that we get them involved. I see in the notice, and I'm not sure where it was published or where the publication, what journal it was or what legal publication, but it states that there's copies in the library. I'd like to see if we can work with our public information officer, Colleen, to see if we can do a more outreach to citizens in neighborhoods, subdivisions, community groups to get more involvement, because we are the users and you should be getting input for improvements, whether they're slab improvements, whether they're surface water protection improvements, whether they're public safety issues. You need to get them from the people that drive our county, and that's our neighborhoods, that's our subdivisions, our housing homeowner associations, and community groups. And I just don't think that a lot of people know about the process, so we need to educate our public and get more people involved. I'd like to see the county council table this till the next meeting, continue the public hearing process, and let's get the entire plan, which I believe is 215 pages, up on the county's website for all of our 400,000 residents to see. It's about openness and transparency of county government. It's about getting people involved that you serve into the process. And we're the people that ask for the services and ask for the improvements. And I think that the people across the county should have a say-so where they want the money spent in capital improvement projects. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Okay. Is there any other speakers on the capital improvement program 2014 to 2018? Okay. Seeing none, we will close the public hearings on the capital improvement program. And we will now open the meeting for public comments. Just a reminder, those that speak will be limited to 3 minutes. You will be limited to one topic, and we will have pro and con, and no more than 3 speakers for that. Okay? Public comments. Sir, come on.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, good evening. My name is Rich Musler. I'm with Musler Engineering. Our office is here in St. Charles. I'll make very brief comments concerning Bill 3990 on your agenda this evening. You'll remember I was here at your last meeting, and there was a question about whether this property was subject to the covenants and restrictions of Park Charles South. I've had a couple meetings now with the trustees of Park Charles South. In fact,
Sir, ma'am, sir, could you, if you need to speak, could you move on outside?
In fact,
Thank
my
you.
first meeting with them was out in the parking lot after your last council meeting. But they have verified for me that this property is not currently subject to the covenants and restrictions. It's specifically exempted. But that being said, we are going to make these 4 lots subject to their CNRs in a voluntary fashion. And so they will look like they're part of Park Charles, and they will join the homeowners association. So just wanted the council to know that. And of course, we also continue to ask that you vote favorably for this tonight. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other comments on this particular bill, which I believe is 3999? Okay. Seeing none, do we have any other public comments? Sir?
I'm here to address you on off-road. I think it's one of the most dangerous roads in the county. I had a plan that I think would eliminate a lot of the problems. I can't get anybody to talk to me. Last week, I'm not feeling well, but I got a call and I met Department of National Resources out there. This 50-acre landfill was supposed to be closed by the county and hasn't been closed in 37 years. We have one leachate tank that's leaching into Peru Creek, and I had a complaint from the federal government about it. That's how the city of St. Louis got sued over that. There's some ways we can cure that, I think, real easily, and I can't even get a meeting or anybody to talk to me. I had somebody from the county here for 15 minutes, couldn't spare the time, and the environmental study said he was getting ready to go home. I had another guy to tell me I didn't know anything about development, and Scarsdale and Scarsdale Manor, and I probably developed over 100,000 houses, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just not very well pleased that I can't even have a meeting with 4 or 5 government agencies to get this thing straightened out. But it includes the city of O'Fallon, St. Paul, and the county, and I just can't get any cooperation. It's starting with the county now that people are starting to understand that what's going on here. But this thing should have been closed 30 years ago, 37 years ago. It's being held open. We're leaching into Brew Creek, and from what I couldn't go down and look at what was going on there, but they showed me pictures, and I said, well, I don't want to say what I said. But we got a problem, and if we get the federal government curing it, there's 2 ways to get your money. Either you pay for it or you get fined, and in some way, I think this thing's going to get cured. That's the leaching into Brew Creek. The road, I don't have any confidence in.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Is there any other comments on this subject or any other topic? Mr. Dino?
Good evening again, council members. A.C. Dino, county resident. What I'd like to talk about tonight is bill number 3992, and that deals with the community development grant block funds. Part of that is dealing with the homeless and emergency homeless shelters, or shelter for families that are in need. We really need to address this. Unfortunately, there's a stigma out there. It's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. If it doesn't bother me or affect my neighborhood, why should I care and why should I get involved? Well, the mayor in Wentzville, Nick Gouchian, he got involved, but unfortunately the Board of Aldermen has shut him down, and they're going to tear down a homeless shelter down in Wentzville, which is very unfortunate. Now, this county, along with the city of St. Peters, you have several contracts with Salvation Army, St. Anne and Joachim, or St. Joachim and Anne, and other agencies to help the homeless in terms of long-term homelessness and shelters. But those shelters don't take single men. If you're not a boyfriend-girlfriend, if you're not a married couple, if you're not a man with children, the shelters just do not take you. I think that we need to address the contracts and allow for single men to be included in the homeless emergency shelter process. Just to give you a personal situation, about 3 weeks ago on Tom Ginevra, right by the Sheriff's Department, I ran into a woman and a man that hitchhiked on 70 going west, trying to get to Washington State, and they're homeless. Well, they're stuck because they ran out of money, and they're living out of the woods next to the Phillips 76 at the corner of T.R. Hughes and Tom Ginevra, and they've been living there for 3 or 4 days. I called our police department. We found out who they were. We ran a background check. We got our chaplain involved, our chaplain division, and we put them up in a hotel for one night. But that's all that the O'Fallon chaplains do, is they provide one night for food and shelter. Now these people were turned back out. I met with Dr. Sherwin at the O'Fallon Shelter for the Homeless in O'Fallon on Sonner Boulevard at VMP. And unfortunately, they were out of room, but again, they would take the woman, but they don't take the single man. So they're out in the streets, and now for the last 3 weeks, they lived in the community off of Civic Park Drive, off of Main Street in O'Fallon. And yet, there's no programs that can help these people. These people are trying to make a living. They're trying to get to Washington to work on a farm for the harvest season in the fall. And we need to come up with something through these contracts that are going to allow single men to to have the same opportunities that women do for homeless shelters and emergency homeless needs. That's the story. I think we need to change these contracts, and I'd like to see that done this year. I've been here now 3 years in front of this county council. I've come across 5 different homeless men in the county, in the O'Fallon area. I brought those situations to you, and it seems like nobody cares or nobody wants to address this issue. It's a city issue, but it's St. Charles County. We have that issue. We have that stigma. We need to had it head on. We need to address these issues. And part of the issues is the money through the community development grant block funds. And I'd like to see you change the contracts with the various people that provide emergency and long-term homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments on this particular subject? Any other public comments on any other subject? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comments section and ask for an oral report from our county executive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the council. I'm here to present the Schools Mental Health and Emergency Service Task Force final report. As you know, you commissioned this report after the tragedy in the schools last winter, and we've had some people been working very hard. I want to thank Jennifer and Joanne in particular for the many, many hours that they put in on this, and I think you're going to see it's been well worth the time. In response to the tragedy at Sandy Hook in December 2012, the task force was established to make recommendations concerning ways to enhance the readiness of public and private schools and institutions of higher learning in the county. The task force provided the educational, mental health, and law enforcement communities with an opportunity to further cooperate and talk about best practices and to assess opportunities for improvement. The group met in January, February, and July and issued a report of its initial findings on February the 7th. Before discussing the report, I'd like to thank the 14 school, law enforcement, nonprofit officials who contributed their time and expertise to this task force. You see some of them listed here, and there are the rest of them, and we very much appreciate their participation. As a result of the information received from experts, service providers, and the public, the task force compiled a list of best practices, which include using risk assessment worksheets such as those utilized in the Fort Zumwalt School District and plans as a means of identifying troubled students as early as possible and coordinating a response. Utilization of mental health first aid and crisis intervention training. Mental health first aid training teaches how to recognize symptoms of mental health problems, how to offer and provide initial help, and how to guide a person towards appropriate treatments and other supporting help. Crisis intervention training helps police officers react appropriately to situations involving mental illness or developmental disability. Building relationships and training with law enforcement so both parties are familiar with each other's plan, drills, and even the layout and the workings of school facility buildings. Based on the best practices and discussions, the task force also put together a list of recommendations for school, law enforcement, government, and nonprofit personnel to follow regarding school safety, resource allocation, technology, and mental health issues. As a result, the task force identified needs to expand mental health first and training for those with children and teens. Two groups have stepped up to help. First, the Community and Children's Resource Board of St. Charles County, also known as CCRB, is funding mental health first aid training for school personnel. The course will be held by the Missouri Institute for Mental Health during October. It's a 5-day program that can accommodate 30 people. Individuals who complete the program must then conduct 3 training seminars a year to maintain their certification. The tuition is $1,855, of which $855 will be paid by the CCRB. Slots are still open. Schools interested in sending a participant to the program should contact Bruce Sawatsky at CCRB. In addition, St. Charles County Juvenile Justice Center is training deputy juvenile officers in mental health first aid. Center applied for and received a grant from the Missouri Institute of Mental Health, which provides a scholarship for the family court psychologist, Dr. Stacy Buning, to attend the Youth Mental Health First Aid Instructor course. Dr. Buning will coordinate with the CCRB to provide training to others in the county that have contact with youth, such as personnel with the Missouri Division of Youth Services and school counselors. Also, as a result of interest from the task force and learning more about the county's new emergency radio communication system, the county hosted a forum with Motorola to provide school administrators an opportunity to learn about the technology solutions available for improving in-school communications and communications with law enforcement officers. Of course, we learned a lot about that tonight, and I think you could see how that interoperability could really benefit a school in an emergency situation. School districts expressed an interest in having a radio in each facility office. Interested schools will be able to purchase radios off the county's contract. The county will work with schools and law enforcement to facilitate further discussions about implementation. Thank you to the County Council for passing the ordinance to make this task force happen. It was an opportunity for us to be proactive in keeping our schools and communities safe. I think everyone learned a lot. It was great to see educators, law enforcement, mental health people all in the same room and basically addressing the same problem. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Or kick them over to Jennifer.
Okay.
I'd just like to thank Steve. It was a great idea because you're right. When everyone got together and talked, it was like communities and schools were saying, "You guys do what? Wow, that's really neat." I mean, it came together real well.
Yeah, I think the biggest development of the task force was just allowing various agencies to be able to share ideas, but also find out what's available. Especially in the mental health field, so many of the schools did not know that there was an awful lot of free available mental health assistance that was there just for the asking. And so that was, I think, a very, very important step in allowing schools to find that information out.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Thanks to you and Mr. Brazel for serving. I know it took some time, so thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Move to accept. Second.
Okay. All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, consent agenda has passed. Okay. Next up is resolution number 13-10, which is the adopting of the 2014 Capital Program and Strategic Plan.
Resolution 13-10, sponsored by council as a whole, a resolution adopting the 2014 Capital Program and Strategic Plan. Whereas the St. Charles County Charter, Article 6, Section 6.301, 2012, requires the County Council to adopt the capital program and strategic plan no later than 2 months prior to the final date of the submission of the budget, and whereas the final date for submission of the budget to the County Council by the County Executive is no earlier than the 5th day of the 11th month or the first working day after the 5th of each fiscal year, pursuant to Article 6, subsection 6.201 of the St. Charles County Charter, and whereas the County Executive has presented the plan to the County Council, a public hearing has been held on it, and it has been made available for inspection by the public. Now therefore be it resolved by the County Council of St. Charles County, Missouri as follows. Section 1, the 5-year capital program and strategic plan attached hereto as Exhibit A, known as the Capital Improvement Program years 2014 through 2018, is hereby approved. Section 2, compliance with all the terms of the 2014 Capital Improvement Program years 2014 to 2018 shall be the responsibility of the County Executive.
Okay. Any comments, questions on the capital improvement? Mr. Cronin?
I discussed that with Ms. Lakem prior to the meeting, and since this is just a plan like the master plan, we can look at the numbers a little harder when the budget time comes around.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Yes. Mr. Ehlmann.
Are we providing this document on a website or something that people can obtain, or we had many requests for copies of it?
The plan's always put on the website after it's approved. I mean, that's been the history. The charter lays out certain ways that it's to be distributed, and we've done that by placing the draft in the library as of the date that we make it available to you all, which is always a month. It's now a month and 6 days prior to the date that you have to adopt it.
I think it'd be a good idea to put the draft on the website as well. Just in today's world of electronic communications, fewer and fewer people are coming in and wanting to see things in the written paper form. And I think anytime we can get that information out and solicit any feedback, it's always a good idea.
Yes.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Yes.
Great.
Okay. All right. I believe that we will. Any other comments? Okay.
A resolution adopting the 2014 Capital Program and Strategic Plan. Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlmann?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Okay. Resolution number 13-10 has passed. And next is bills for final passage, starting with bill number 3990.
Bill number 3990, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land COFF Office District with Floodway Fringe Overlay District to R1EFF Single Family Residential District with Floodway Fringe Overlay District as per application 19247.
Okay. Questions or comments on bill number 3990? Yes, Mr. Cronin.
Mr. Musler, I guess I've seen you at a lot of planning and zoning commissions and a few council meetings, and my only comment would be this. I know many of the municipalities in this county combine the conditional use permit and a site plan approval in the same meetings, okay? And I'm sure you've brought those before, and I think it might be something, maybe in your mind, would that not have made your life a lot easier the last few months on this if those processes were combined? And so I would like the administration, I guess, to look at that, because I think it's a smoother way to operate than I think a lot of the cities do, because I know I struggle given a conditional use permit without seeing a site plan. I had a lot of questions about this at P&Z, which your company very graciously answered, but if I could have saw the site plan when I was doing the conditional use permit, it probably made the process much easier for you and for the county as well.
All right. Any other comments on 3990? Okay, seeing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land Office District with Floodway Fringe Overlay District to R1E FF Single Family Residential District with Floodway Fringe Overlay District as per application 19247. Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlmann?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Okay, bill number 3990 passes. Next bill for final passage is bill number 3991.
Bill number 3991, an ordinance amending ordinance 99-141, granting conditional use permit C532 for a winery to Richard K. and Carol A. Balducci.
Okay, questions or comments on bill 3991? Okay, seeing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance amending ordinance 99-141, granting conditional use permit C532 for a winery to Richard K. and Carol A. Balducci. Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlmann?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Okay, bill number 3991 passes. Next up is bill number 3992.
Bill number 3992, an ordinance authorizing 4 agreements relating to St. Charles County's Urban County Community Development Block Grant Program, or Urban County CDBG program, for 2014 through 2016, namely a subrecipient agreement between St. Charles County and the City of St. Peters to operate or run the city's programs and services, a services agreement between St. Charles County and the City of St. Peters for the city's operation of the county's programs and services, a subrecipient agreement between St. Charles County and St. Joachim and Ann Care Services for its operation of its own programs and services, and a professional administrative services agreement with the City of St. Peters for the 2014 through 2016 planning period for the city's administration of the county's Urban County CDBG program.
Thank you. Any comments on bill number 3992? Okay, seeing none, let's call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing 4 agreements relating to St. Charles County's Urban County Community Development Block Grant Program, or Urban County CDBG program, for 2014 through 2016, namely a subrecipient agreement between St. Charles County and the City of St. Peters to operate or run the city's programs and services, a services agreement between St. Charles County and the City of St. Peter for the city's operation of the county's program and services, a subrecipient agreement between St. Charles County and St. Joachim and Ann Care Services for its operation of its own programs and services, and a professional administrative services agreement with the City of St. Peters for the 2014 through 2016 planning period for the city's administration of the county's Urban County CDBG program. Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlmann?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Okay, bill number 3992 passes. Next bill is number 3993.
Bill number 3993, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute 3 surface transportation program agreements with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the following projects. 1, Federal Project STP-7302634 for allocation of funds to 80% of the eligible cost up to a maximum amount of $470,400 for a 2-inch asphalt overlay, and 2, Federal Project STP-7302643 and Federal Project STP-7302644, both for allocation of funds up to 80% of the eligible cost up to a maximum amount of $449,400 each for overlaying an ultra-thin bonded wearing course on certain roadways to preserve pavement life, reduce maintenance cost, and improve safety.
Okay. Questions or comments on bill 3993? Okay. Seeing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute 3 surface transportation program agreements with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the following projects. 1, Federal Project STP-7302634 for allocations of funds to 80% of the eligible cost up to a maximum amount of $470,400 for a 2-inch asphalt overlay, and 2, Federal Project STP-7302643 and Federal Project STP-7302644, both for allocation of funds up to 80% of the eligible costs up to a maximum amount of $449,400 each for overlaying an ultra-thin bonded wearing course on certain roadways to preserve pavement life, reduce maintenance costs, and improve safety. Councilmember Ehlmann?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes. Okay, bill number 3993 passes. Next bill for final passage is bill number 3994.
Bill number 3994, an ordinance amending the 2013 budget of St. Charles County, Missouri, as adopted by ordinance 12-096 by 1, transferring appropriations between budget categories in the Road and Bridge Fund of the Highway Department, 2, recognizing receipt of additional state block grant funds from Missouri Department of Transportation and appropriating those additional revenues in excess of those estimated in the airport fund budget. 3, transferring funds to the general fund from the Parks and Recreation Department to the Office of Public Information. And 4, amending Chapter 115 of the Ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, OSCCMO, relating to the basic pay plan by adding a position within the Office of Public Information.
Questions or comments on this particular bill?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I had some questions on the third part of this bill, and I talked to Ms. Lakem about this, and I kind of like to expand on it a little bit. And essentially, what I was told was the Office of Public Information does PR work for the Parks Department, and this is a way for the Parks Department to pay back the Office of Public Information for the time spent on that. And I'm fine with that, but I would like to expand on that and know, for instance, the sheriff, when he sends deputies for parks events, does his department get reimbursed for that time that they spend? When highway department plows the snow in those parks, does highway get reimbursed for the money that they spend taking care of parks property? And what I'm driving at is, I think folks know that I believe the parks fund's pretty flush, and I think those departments should get reimbursed by the Parks Department if they're doing work on behalf of the Parks Department. And I'd like to know if this is going to continue, in your particular opinion on this.
Little bit of a twist on that is that this position in public information is working in the family arena, which is funded in part by money from parks. So because they were taking so much away from other duties, we had to have somebody down there for the teams, for the events, running the boards, everything that office does for the family arena. So that's where that money is coming from, is it's coming out of those additional funds that were in fact picked up during the state sales tax vehicle revenue glitch about what's use tax, what's sales tax. There's a number of funds there. So that because the family arena is in part funded out of that for some operating funds, that's where that position is coming from. In terms of, I think Jennifer wants to add to that.
I think the difference that I'd make sure and comment on between those various scenarios you mentioned is that this position will work almost exclusively at the arena. Because of the number of events that we've picked up with all of the sports teams, we really only have one individual, Jack, right now, who can handle those technical needs down at the arena, and we can't handle the number of events that we've got coming up. So that'll be the use of this position. In terms of when press releases and that sort of thing on behalf of parks, Public Information Office regularly reviews those, but those types of particular needs, time-wise, are very, very, very minuscule. It would not be worth our own time to account for the minute and 30 seconds it takes Colleen to otherwise review a press release. Some of these other sheriff's visits and those things might be a little bit more of an applicable conversation, and I'll defer to Joanne on that. But in terms of other activities that public information does on behalf of the Parks Department, it's minimal.
Okay, what I'm driving at is this. The parks revenue comes from use taxes. We're spending parks revenue here, okay, to support the family arena through the public information, through the work of the Public Information Department, and I'm fine with that too. We have a Parks and Recreation Department, and I think by melding those budgets of parks and family arena, who I've talked to Mr. Gross about before, and he had some interest in it, it would free up some money to general revenue that could help other departments in this county, like the Sheriff's Department. And I would like to see that as something to be discussed when we come around to budget time.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah. The answer to your general question is that in the last 5 years, with all the pressures on the general revenue budget, yes, we have been looking for every opportunity we can to pay. If we can pay something out of the park fund, we do. I think, Bob, would you agree with that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different
But you may find some other ideas. Let us know.
And I would add to that while we're talking right now about this, that what we try to do regularly and have for many years is to make sure we're taking the money out of the right fund. So we spend, as Bob ended his sentence with, we spend a lot of time on interfund transfers. So if Craig does something for a general fund department and it's of substance, we ask him to account for that at the end of the year, and we make sure we transfer to that specialized account that the voters voted a tax for specific reason of maintenance of roads and bridges, and he goes out and maybe cuts the grass for Dwayne at one of the tower sites. We'll make a like deposit from radio to that fund, or, you know, if he has to do something special for us, he sends a cherry picker out, I think, to help so that Dave Garrison's not, you know, climbing up towers with a 70-pound battery on his back. Then we make a deposit from the general fund into the road and highway so that that's appropriately accounted for, and we do quite a bit of that. The issue that really, I think, and I know you've been talking to Chuck about that, and he and I talked about it before he left, but the issue that really came up about the arena last year is that we had so much previously general fund money that because of the sales tax issue occurring with the vehicles for out-of-state purchase and then the individual sales inside the state, that was moved into use tax and therefore went to parks. It seemed like a very appropriate time to do some budget melding, and there was some done this year to take that recreation piece of the family arena and fund it out of that. We'll face what we're going to do now that that's been changed by the new statute about how to handle that in future years. We'll very definitely have to take up. But there was over a year, 2 fiscal years here where that money was caught in the parks tax.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Please call the roll.
An ordinance amending the 2013 budget of St. Charles County, Missouri as adopted by ordinance 12-096 by 1, transferring appropriations between budget categories in the Road and Bridge Fund of the Highway Department, 2, recognizing receipt of additional state block grant funds from the Missouri Department of Transportation and appropriating those additional revenues in excess of those estimated in the airport fund budget, and 3, transferring funds to the general fund from the Parks and Recreation Department to the Office of Public Information, and 4, amending Chapter 115 of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, OSCCMO, relating to the basic pay plan by adding a position within the Office of Public Information. Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlmann?
Yes.
Okay. Bill number 3994 passes. Next bill is number 3995.
Bill number 3995, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute the amendment to state block grant agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for receipt of funds in the amount of $131,625 with an initial county match not less than $6,929 for an airport runway pavement maintenance project at Smart Field that will include crack sealing and pavement sealing on existing runways.
Okay, questions, comments on Bill 3995?
Mr. Chair, I've been tracking a lot of this work because I'm a tenant at Smart Field, and the airport director has a little email address where he tells everybody out there what's going on. Craig has done a lot of work with Tracy Smith on this, and not only having to deal with a flood this year, but they've done a ton of improvements out there. And whenever I've asked Tracy Smith before, I said, Tracy, how much is it going to cost? He says, don't worry, Joe. He says, we got grants for 95% of it. So he's done a really good job, and so has Craig on it. And I was real sad to hear in an email newsletter that Tracy sends out that he's retiring. And I think all the efforts that he put in out there were kind of his swan song. He wanted to place in tip-top shape when he leaves. So I'm hoping the county's got some type of plans for some type of resolution, because I think if someone goes out there and takes a look at the improvements at Smart Field, you'll see somebody put a hell of a lot of effort into that, and namely it was Tracy Smith, who's retiring, and Craig.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Please call the roll on Bill 3995.
An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute the amendment to state block grant agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for receipt of funds in the amount of $131,625 with an initial county match not less than $6,929 for an airport runway pavement maintenance project at Smart Field that will include crack sealing and pavement sealing on existing runways. Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlmann?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Okay. Bill number 3995 passes. Next up for final passage, Bill number 3996.
Bill number 3996, an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement with municipalities of St. Charles, St. Peters, O'Fallon, Lake St. Louis, and Wentzville to perform a pavement condition inventory.
Okay, questions or comments on Bill number 3996? Okay, seeing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement with municipalities of St. Charles, St. Peters, O'Fallon, Lake St. Louis, and Wentzville to perform a pavement condition inventory. Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlmann?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Okay, Bill number 3996 passes. Next up is Bill number 3997.
Bill number 3997, an ordinance authorizing execution of the St. Charles County Regional SWAT Team Agreement with municipalities who are signatories thereto.
Okay, questions or comments on Bill 3997? Okay, seeing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing execution of the St. Charles County Regional SWAT Team Agreement with municipalities who are signatories thereto. Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlmann?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Bill number 39, yes.
Welcome the city of St. Charles back to the fold. Back to the team.
I know.
Makes sense for everyone.
It certainly does. Okay, Bill number 3997 passes. Next up is Bill number 3998.
Bill number 3998, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute an agreement with East-West Gateway Council of Governments and certain participating jurisdictions for the development of a regional E911 data set for the St. Louis urban area.
Questions, comments on Bill 3998? Seeing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute an agreement with East-West Gateway Council of Governments and certain participating jurisdictions for the development of a regional E911 data set for the St. Louis urban area. Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlmann?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Okay, Bill number 3998 passes. Next up is Bill number 3999.
Bill number 3999, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute an addendum to an intergovernmental agreement with the City of St. Peters for collection of taxes.
Questions or comments on Bill 3999? Okay. Seeing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute an addendum to an intergovernmental agreement with the City of St. Peters for collection of taxes. Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Ehlmann?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Okay, Bill number 3999 passes. And finally, Bill number 4000.
Bill number 4000, an ordinance authorizing the Director of the Department of Community, Health, and the Environment to execute an affiliation agreement with the Bowling Green State University College of Education and Human Development, School of Family and Consumer Sciences, for placement and training of student dietitians in the Division of Public Health in the Department of Community, Health, and the Environment.
Questions or comments on Bill number 4000? Okay, seeing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing the Director of the Department of Community, Health, and the Environment to execute an affiliation agreement with the Bowling Green State University College of Education and Human Development, School of Family and Consumer Sciences, for placement and training of student dietitians in the Division of Public Health in the Department of Community, Health, and the Environment. Councilmember Ehlmann?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes. Bill number 4000 passes. That concludes bills for final passage. There are no tabled bills. Does anyone have any announcements or miscellaneous? Mr. Cronin.
Yes, sir. I'd like to tell the audience and the council that this Sunday is St. Paul's Church Picnic, and there's 2 tons of cooked beef over a slow-roasted kettle fire, and there's 2 tons of chicken, and there's 150 barrels of beer just waiting for the residents of this county. Okay, so please come on out, and if you get by the pig races, you can look me up because I get to chair the pig races this year.
Is that per person?
Huh?
Is that per person?
Per person, yeah, you better be hungry.
Always a good time in St. Paul, I assure you that. Joe?
I was going to ask Joanne if she wanted to do a quick briefing on the happenings, or if would you rather just do not on...
I don't think there's any problem, and you're referring to Augusta Bottom Road?
Right.
Last Monday, we received a letter from the town of Augusta asking, it was addressed to the county executive and to the 3 commissioners of Warren County, asking the affected jurisdictions to close the Augusta Bottom Parkway, which, for those of you unfamiliar with this, is the part of Augusta Bottom Road that begins on the Warren County side of the St. Charles County, Warren County line and proceeds out 150 feet
Something like
to
that.
the
levee.
It's the unpaved portion of the road. In Warren County, if you were coming into that area, there's a sign that says "End Warren County Maintenance," and that piece in between has been kind of a no man's land for a number of years, where neither Warren County has not claimed that land and has not maintained it, and there has been some maintenance apparently by the city of Augusta and some maintenance by a number of years ago by the city of Washington, from what I understand. It is largely used by town of Augusta citizens and city of Washington citizens moving along there. There is nothing wrong with the pavement in St. Charles County. In fact, the county over the last number of years has spent considerable time and attention on making sure that the roadway in our county is in good shape. There's small shoulders on it, there's a guardrail, the pavement's in good shape. So there is no emergency for us. So we have treated that as though it is just a regular request under the traffic regulations, with the added piece, I guess, that we're going to have a public meeting down in Augusta on the 5th of September from 7 to 9 p.m. At the elementary school. Joe would know the name of it, that Joe is going to...
Augusta Elementary School.
Augusta Elementary School, that Joe and Steve will be at. Harold, not Harold, actually. Harold, unfortunately, is not available that evening, but another one of the attorneys and I will be at. And Craig, pardon me. Well, we're all looking forward to it. So we will consider that to be a public meeting. And based on that, there may or may not be a formal item that comes in front of you based on what our citizens. In the meantime, on Friday afternoon at around 3:30, Craig received a phone call from the town of Augusta, pardon me, I keep calling it city. And they informed him that on Saturday they would close the road on the Warren County side of the line. We spoke with them again. We established that it would be between 12 and 2. We asked them to seek permits for signage, that they had a duty to sign that road would be closed. We were especially worried about a midday Saturday closing because people would head one way with the road open and may be going back in the dark, and now the road is closed. They did get their request in for signage. We inspected that on Saturday after they put it up. It was not dangerous signage. We were worried about inappropriate poles or whatever, but I believe Craig's folks found that they put up appropriate breakaway sign poles. They put up 2 8-foot wooden barriers. And we then supplemented that with some signage and also with a light-up sign at MQ Road, which is your last opportunity to turn up to 94, as a safety measure for county citizens and other traveling public. And so that's at this point where it is. They say that it's a closed road. We understand that people are driving around those barriers and still using the road, but we don't have any enforcement, right? We don't have any enforcement obligation. So we've attempted to make sure that the public is aware of the fact that the road is closed. We put out a press release. We called Washington, Missouri. We made sure that Warren County itself knew what had happened. And, we've tried to make sure that the public is safe. I mean, that even though we don't have a legal obligation to do so on a part of the road that we don't control, we felt that we needed to do that. So, and that's where we are. And there will be a public meeting if people care to come and comment on the closure of the road and whether or not we should do anything to close it.
Thank you. Any questions for Joanne? Okay. Yes, County Executive.
I just want to take this opportunity to congratulate this council and all previous councils for passing the 4,000 bill milestone.
How about that?
It's like that may not be a good thing.
Well, yes.
I was going to say we should recognize Carol for doing a lot of reading tonight. That was a great job. That was a lot to get through tonight. It kind of felt like 4,000 bills were going on there for a little while. So,
thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.